So today, I think the goal for this group, for this session would be, you know, some things that I didn't have in college, I would like students that graduate Washington State University, in particular Murrow, to have to be successful. How many people, by a show of hands, have ever done a favor for a friend? Okay, how many people has a friend done a favor for you? You were moving, they asked you for help, or you asked them for help. Okay, that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. And I think the one short anecdote I can give you is I wouldn't be standing here with this microphone, with this tie, trying to pretend that I'm smart and a big deal, unless my graduate chair of my department made a phone call for me. And when I was 19, 20 years old, all I cared about was sports, video games, eating a donut at some point that day. And I didn't get the idea of I thought that getting the degree was just going to be it. And I was like, I'm college educated. People are going to recruit me. I'm going to get a great job. And so the motivation for me proposing this panel was, it's one of those underrated, under-discussed topics, which is what else do you need to add to a brilliant Murrow degree? Like this, you have a lot being a Murrow student. And another thing that you have is a network that is amazing. So not only do you have Murrow alumni and other Cougars out there, but you have people like these three where you can get to know them, and at some point, maybe they can make a phone call for you, and that will help you to get an interview, right? Get an internship, get a scholarship, get admission somewhere. So I have notes, but the public speaking people out here know that we're trying our best to make eye contact, connect with our audience, engage our audience. We don't want to read off a script. So I'm going to try to refer to my notes as little as possible, but I do want to tell you a little bit about me, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our panel, and then I want you to think of questions that you have, because we want it. I know this is the last session of the afternoon, so thanks for being here. But I want you to feel like you're a part of the conversation, so I want you to ask questions as needed. Anytime you have a question, raise your hand, and we want to try to interact with you as much as possible. So I'm Imran Haider. I'm the director of online programs here at Murrow, and I teach in the Murrow College as well. And I have some amazing panelists here, and I'm going to give some of their background to you, and I'm not going to read it off the website. I'm just going to give it to you because they all three happen to be good friends of mine, which is so amazing. I was able to hand select our panelists. So right here, I have John Wentworth, and John is the district attorney for the county where I live in Oregon, and it's the third largest county by population, under 500,000 people. He was elected for his first term in 2020. He was just reelected for another 4 years. And John is also the president of the DA Association. Is that national? State. Okay. But John is a big deal. And so he had a communication bachelor's degree, then he went to law school, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. Molly is a professor of communication at Clark College, and she's also an entrepreneur. She owns a business in the Portland area, and it's one of the best burger joints that I've ever been to in my life. So if you're ever in the Portland area, go to Helvetia Tavern, because it will change your life. And Molly is involved in a lot of charities and community work, and she's also an expert in the world of PR, obviously interpersonal communication. She teaches a media class as well at Clark, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about that in some of her responses. And then I have Keith Sconiers, and Keith is a friend of mine since my undergraduate days. Keith is an entrepreneur, and he built his business. He left a company in 2015-16 and started his business from $0, and now he's worth a lot. He won't tell you that he has over 100 clients. He won't brag about it like I am, but he's done well. And Keith is also a speaker, and he does anything and everything that's asked of him. He's very versatile. He also has played Division I basketball, and that's how we met, through our basketball connections. And so we have an amazing mix of people and backgrounds that can speak to their experiences and how a network, not only education, but a network got them to where they are today. So we'll get to some questions that I have, and then we'll get to some of your questions. So Molly, first to you. How did you get into your career position, and how important were people in your network getting there?
Thank you. Well, first of all, relationships, networking and building a core of people who I had identified in my undergrad as people that I aspired to be like, professors, coaches, entrepreneurs, people in the business. And I started by just asking, do you have any openings? Do you have any internships? Can I work for you? I'll work for free. I'll bring the coffee. I'll do whatever you need. And I did that on the professional side, and I ended up getting hired as a PR intern my junior year for a professor who had a private firm, but I also did it on the university side. I worked in the writing center and the tutoring center, and that's what led to my relationship with teaching and ultimately becoming a professor. And I was able to sort of marry beautifully my desire to work in PR through relationship building. That one internship turned into another internship, turned into a job, and then in tandem, teaching. And I really found my passion for giving back and helping. I was working predominantly in beat reporting, the English department, any type of content creation, and a lot of other things along the way. But that's how I started.
Awesome. So that's a great start to this conversation. John, we'll go to a different question for you. And the question is, why is networking so important, and when did it occur to you that it was so important?
Well, I started out networking, not realizing that I was networking. A lot of what we do is just getting to know other people, right? That's, for me, despite the fact that I've been a trial lawyer for 30 years, and you'd think that I'm an extrovert, and I love to be in front of people, and I really don't. That's not my gig. And so when there's an event like a conference like this, and there's an opportunity for a cocktail hour and a networking, that just fatigues me. I can't. The idea of meeting new people and talking to new people really wears me down, right? And yet, when I take the opportunity, I love that one of the catchphrases of this conference is curiosity. If you approach conversations with people with curiosity, that I just want to learn something about them, and not that they're going to give me something out of it, but I want to learn more. I want to learn about someone else, and really engage in conversation with them. That's the benefit to me, because I grow in my own way, and then from that come, just because we live in a small world, opportunities. The reason I'm sitting on this panel is because a chief of police in my county said, you need to meet Imran. You need to meet him. I don't know what he can do for you. I don't know what you can do for him. You may not do anything for each other, but you need to meet him. So Imran and I met for coffee, and through that conversation, I shared with him some of my ideas for what I wanted to do as district attorney. And Imran said, I want to be a part of that. I want to make that happen. I can get on board with that vision. And so we'll talk about it some, but we created a special panel that's part of my office that Imran is on, and he's been instrumental in making that happen. He's done that for me, right? That's part of the reason I'm here today, because I want to do that for him. And from that, we've met people throughout my county from creating that panel so that we can build communication with each other, and they're there asking, what can we do for you? And how can you help my community? So that's the networking that we've been able to build kind of organically, just from a cup of coffee. And that's how your life will happen. People will come back into your life that you haven't spoken to for 20, 30 years, and suddenly they're important in your life again. It just happens. We live in a small world. So that's my
Thanks.
take.
That was, I did not expect that. Shameless plug. But no, I think that we have, what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? Why do you care to get out of bed and live life? What do you want to do today and this week and this month? And you all have to look in the mirror and determine that, chisel out your identity. And that's a part of why would you have a conversation with someone? Why would I take a coffee meeting with him when I am not nowhere near the lawyer business, right? But I want to be involved with community work that matters. I want to get more people from different backgrounds in the conversation with law enforcement and policy. And so those are and so that's led to a lot of different opportunities for us. So Keith and I talk a lot about how when we were in college, we both were basketball junkies and stuff like that, and we just maybe wasted some of our valuable time. So I think this question for you, Keith, is what do you wish you knew if you go back to your undergraduate years? What would you do? What would you do different? What kind of advice can you tell the audience about what you wish you knew back then?
I wish I knew why I was there in the first place, for real. So let me give you a background. 1.3 GPA my freshman year in high school, banned from campus, on the verge of going nowhere, expelled 6 times before I got to high school. And so when I started playing basketball, I ended up getting a scholarship. I thought I was in college to play basketball, and my Division I coach affirmed that. He said, hey guys, just so you know, the reason you're here is to play basketball. So that's what I did, and that's what I did for 4 years. I wish I would have known that the real reason why I was on campus was to develop personally, right? To develop my mindset, to develop a skill set so that I could provide professional value after I got done with college. If I would have known that while I was in college, then I wouldn't have had 17 jobs over the course of the next decade when I got done with college, right? So what I wish I would have had was a mentor, a relationship with someone who said, hey, the next 5 to 10 years are going to be really tough if you don't figure out how to build relationships and understand what it is you stand for as a person, what your professional value is, and how you can continue to build relationships so that you can open doors for yourself. So I didn't have that. I worked really hard. I went to all the courses and classes and things like that, but I missed a tremendous opportunity to build great relationships with great people on campus.
Well said. Does anyone have any questions that they've thought about so far they would like to throw in there? All right, faculty, you're part of this too if you have any. Yes?
Yeah, for the gentleman that just spoke. Keith, what was that shift that made you change? Was it after college when you're working, one of those jobs that you didn't want to work? Yeah. What was that point of shift?
Yeah, the point of shift was I was on the verge of bankruptcy for a decade, and one night I was always been entrepreneurial, always wanted to figure out how to build my own business, and I had a mentor at the time who came to my house after a business meeting and said, hey kid, like the reason why this is happening is you don't know how to build relationships with people, right? You don't know how to build relationships. And so he talked to me that night about learning how to build quality relationships. And I read book after book after book after book on how to figure out what is this thing called connection? What is this thing called relationship? I grew up in an environment where I had to, shelter myself off from other people because I wasn't in a healthy environment. My dad was in and out of prison. I had uncles in and out of prison. I was exposed to a variety of different types of, drugs and addiction and things like that. And so I had to heal personally and then learn how to build relationships. And that was the pivotal point where I had to stop thinking about myself. I had to stop thinking about what do I need to do to be successful, and how can I help other people be successful? And what John was talking about today, that curiosity. I stopped being curious about what my own goals were, and I started being curious about the person next to me and saying, hey, what is it that you're after in the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years? And then being a catalyst to being a person that can open doors for them. And that was the thing that turned everything around for me.
Awesome. So this question is for all three of you, and then we'll get back to audience questions for the next round. I guess we can just go down the line. John, then Molly, then Keith. What is the communication skill that you've used to be successful in your profession? Just to add context to nerd out on this, we're the School of Communication, so we have to integrate some sort of idea of why do you take classes here, what do you learn in your classes, and how can you plug those into future professional you?
I would say the most important skill is the ability to listen. It's kind of lost anymore, and I mean that among my peers as well. Being able to listen requires 2 things, and we've already talked about one: curiosity. Listening isn't just sitting and passively hearing someone. It's actually hearing what they have to say and processing that and asking questions back to demonstrate I'm on board with you, I'm on the same page as you, and I'm interested in what you have to say. People love to talk about themselves. I love to talk about myself, and you do too, right? It's just the natural part of who we are. But folded into that is curiosity and humility, right? To put someone else before yourself in that moment and to make them feel and know that what they're saying is important to you. I wish more people knew how to listen and just sit back and take in information from someone who they may have nothing to do with your field or your areas of interest. I sat at a party one time, and there was a guy, he was by himself, and I walked over and we just started talking because I was kind of being shy myself. And he works in this industry where they take the fans, the propellers from a jet plane, and those get bent during flight by hail and birds and all the things that go into a jet engine. And his company will take those and they'll re-straighten them and sell them back to Boeing and these other companies. Now that sounds kind of boring, like, okay, so you straighten blades, right? That's what his company does. But if you ask questions about, well, how big of an industry is that? Do you have any major competitors? How big is that? What kind of metal do you use on those? I'm asking plane safety. Like, I have a vested interest in this. I'm a passenger. How often does that happen? How long does a blade last? He was elated that someone cared about the work he does, right? And I learned a ton. He has nothing, I'll probably never see that guy again. He has nothing to do with my field, but I now know more probably than anyone in this room about how those blades in a jet engine are repurposed. And I think that's fascinating. That's my ability to actually sit and listen to what someone has to say. I recommend you do that too.
And that's a great connection to the next part of that conversation is maybe their company needs a PR person. And, you've already made your pitch to get that job, organically. And that's kind of why we're here. It's a networking process. So go ahead, Molly. Same question to you.
Emotional intelligence. And you can package it as analytics or personas or knowing who your audience is. But I think that the most likable and approachable people have a high level of emotional intelligence. Some of that is innate. Some people are just naturally emotionally intelligent. They're empathetic, they're good listeners. They know how to make space for people and how to make people feel like they matter. But if it's not a natural skill that you have, you can research it and practice it and study it, and there are steps. And I think that in a world where people have become so self-centered, that to walk into a space and to effectively read the room and practice your emotional intelligence, particularly as a young person, is what will make you stand out among your peers. And, oh, by the way, I don't have the stats, but that's what employers are looking for across the board. Because emotionally intelligent people are teachable, they're flexible, and they're adaptable. So when you go into an organization or a corporation or a nonprofit, who I've worked a lot with nonprofits, a skill can be taught. You can learn how to write the press release. You can learn how to use the software to create the website or do the blogs or whatever you're doing. But do you get along well with others? Are you emotionally intelligent enough to understand what a group of people needs and then to respond accordingly? And I think we say it sort of colloquially like, read the room. That's what the communication skill, read the room.
That's awesome. Yeah, high level of awareness and paying attention to detail. They seem like cliches, but they're important. So Keith, communication skill that you would recommend using?
I'm going to be honest. I'm just here to sit next to John and Molly. I'm just here to listen. I'm like, don't ask me any more questions. But truly, it really is listening. It's taking the time to just rest that brain and say, I don't have to formulate a response. I just want to listen. I just want to learn. I do a lot of what John talks about is he's so empowered now. The next time, for whatever reason, he's talking to a pilot, he's able to spark up a conversation and it's instant connection. Because like, whoa, you know something about me, right? So take the time to listen. I think that that's the most important. And also ask great questions, not only of the people that you get a chance to meet, but when you go home tonight and you look in the mirror, start asking yourself really intelligent questions and then sit with it for a couple days and then come back to it. write it down in your journal, and come back to it, and then begin to listen to what's really deep down inside of you, whether it be personal or professional.
Love it. Any other questions that came up in the audience? Yeah.
How do you break the contact barrier with like professionals or professors and like start up those relationships and those connections? Like, what's your best advice with overcoming that scary barrier? Any of you?
Yeah, I mean, you can start. Why don't you start? Your best answer.
Yeah, I think having a well-scripted inquiry email that it's just sort of your go-to, and just being very professional and curious, introducing yourself. Perhaps it's someone that you're in their class, or you've heard of a professor that's offering an internship or has their own business. A lot of professors do many things. That's not their only job. And so identifying the way that you'd like to present yourself, and it could just be from a place of curiosity. I'm inquiring to see if you know of personally or professionally through your network anyone who has any openings for internships or are looking for volunteers. So having that in your back pocket, I think, is really smart because it can be adaptable to anyone. And then just, really hitting send. I think that we get bound by our own paralysis, and we think, what will they think of me? Or I'm not qualified. Nobody's qualified at this point. You're not supposed to be qualified, and the only way you get qualified is experience. And so, and I think the connection through curiosity is also being really humble. Maybe saying, I don't know anything about PR yet, but I'm hungry, and I'm a hard worker, and I'm dependable, and I will tell me what to do, and I'll fall within those guidelines. I also think putting yourself in front of people is something that a lot of young people struggle with, and it's increasingly difficult with social media and the pandemic, and I could go on, but having a scripted email that you can go back to and sending it out, just like you would, an informational interview to someone. You send out a net, send it to all your professors. And make sure it reflects who you are and as professional, but then also not being afraid to stay after class for 5 minutes and put yourself in front of, if you're in a class with 50 people or 100 people, it's easy to get lost in the mix, but you matter, and your professor or anyone in a professional field will remember the person who just simply had the guts to walk up and say, hi, this is my name. I'm really curious about your field. Can I ask you a few questions? Could we meet for coffee? And expect nothing in return. Just open. Sort of, is this a thread worth pulling? And where you're at in life, they're all a thread worth pulling. Because I didn't know where I would be at this point. I thought I was probably gonna go to law school my junior year as a comp studies major. And now I'm here.
Yeah, I would say I have to respond to what you're saying, because part of why you pay your tuition is to get to know brilliant people. Murrow's faculty is the best that you're going to find anywhere. And I'm not biased at all. I'm just saying that objectively. There are people that work in this department that are highly brilliant, but also know people in the professions you all want to go into. And part of why you pay your tuition is to get to know them. Like I said, no community college wanted to interview me. I didn't even try university. Community colleges didn't want to hire me because I had no teaching experience coming out of graduate school, and one phone call from my graduate chair, and she said, you're going to want to interview this guy, and they did. And that was life-changing. Like, honestly, that connection I made with her, because I was her TA, and we got along well, and she invited me to her house to meet her family for dinner and stuff. Like, we had that relationship that allowed me to get into college teaching, and that's just what I was meant to do. And I would have never got there without her professional connection, right? So I just can't emphasize enough. You have to, if you vibe with the professor, you have to take advantage. You have to go to their office hours, get to know them, and we're bored on our office hours a lot. We're lonely. There's not enough visitors, so you should do it. And then once you graduate, you have people to write letters for you, make phone calls for you. And anyway, I'll talk about that later if we want to have an individual conversation. But any other questions before I get back to the ones we have prepared?
Can I say something?
Sure.
if Imran's your professor, he likes coffee, he likes ice cream, he likes pastries. So bring some to class. But also, I would say ask an intelligent question in office hours, like he mentioned, because that stands out. Ask an important question about a book that you're going to have to write a paper on. How does your professor feel about that book? And ask 3, 4, 5 questions, and don't ask them all at the same time. Ask them strategically over the course of your term, and you'll build a relationship.
So I'll stick with you, Keith. What should be your mindset going into? You kind of talked about it right now, like approaching a professor conversation. But what should be your mindset networking, just in a general sense, with where can you do it, and what is your mindset going into those? If you're going to a chamber meeting or a wedding reception, or
Well, my wife's in the room, so I can't lie about this, but I'm just going to say that I believe in Santa Claus, and that I just want to be like Santa Claus. I want to give gifts everywhere that I go, whether it's listening, whether it's an introduction, whether it's just making somebody laugh, right? So when it comes to networking, that's my mindset. I don't expect to receive anything. I just expect to go somewhere, meet some nice people, and somehow make somebody's day if I can. And that's my mindset, and I find that is undefeated. I've never seen a person with that mindset, that approach to living, that has we all have bad days, but I've never seen that person fail.
Has any guest on your podcast ever, have you ever done business with them? Like, have they put you in a position?
I have, but I don't.
I know you don't.
Yeah.
I know that's not the reason, but I'm saying, so Keith has 2 podcasts, and the thing about his podcast it's a podcast. It's cool to do that, and he does it at a professional level, and it's edited. It's awesome. But it's just this gateway into, like, somebody for 45 minutes is pouring their life story to you, and they're telling you about their trials, and they're telling you about their successes, and you have this instant, deep connection with somebody. It's interpersonal, it's meaningful, and so that person now is a part of your network as well. And now they feel possibly the rule of reciprocation coming on, which is like, okay, next time I need somebody for this, I'm asking Keith, even though he didn't ask for anything. And I know that's not why he does it, but that's a part of the mindset, which is, I'm going to have this podcast. We're going to get to know people. We're going to share it with everybody we know so that people can get to know your story. And then maybe the results come. We don't know. But that's kind of where we have to get into that mentality of what John's talking about and Keith talked about, listening, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we're doing the right thing. So go ahead, John. Do you want to add to the mindset?
Yeah, to follow up on your question, I've been fascinated by how many people who I knew who don't try to call me anymore because they're like, well, you're the DA, you're really important, right? They're intimidated by my position. And I'm like, I'm John. Like, I'm the same person. I just have a different title. I have different responsibilities. And so I would say, you asked what the barriers are. You're the first barrier. If you don't get into the mindset of, I'm going to make that phone call or I'm going to send that email, it'll never happen. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Have you heard that? Right? So if you don't take the shot, you won't get it. Here's my other thing. I meet a lot of high school students who come through and they have an interest in being a lawyer and they go, oh, I'd love to talk to you someday and go to coffee. And I always say, let's do it, because that's where I was when I was in high school. And no one has taken me up on it. I don't know if it's because they're intimidated and they think, well, I know he's being nice and he won't really do it. I will. So if someone offers you the opportunity to have that connection, again, even if you don't think anything may come of it, but you just want to learn something new about someone who's interesting, do it. Absolutely do it, right? There's no downside. So that's my recommendation.
I love the Ted Lasso positivity vibes that are coming out. It just feels good. Other questions from anyone? Do we think of anything else they want to ask before I get to? Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that. How do you deal with rejection? Like, you send an email, you never get a response, or somebody you want to be your mentor, like somebody else better. Like, how do you deal with that?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to just share a quip that I said to Imran yesterday, which is rejection is redirection, and embrace rejection, because it might not make sense today or tomorrow or in 5 years, but one day you'll look back and say that was in alignment with something that was supposed to happen. And so embrace it. I cannot speak for anyone else on this panel, but I have failed a lot. I have heard a lot of no's. I have been turned down for jobs. I have been declined. And the things that I have been able to receive have been because I persisted. I didn't give up. I wasn't like, oh, I can't do this job anymore. Like, PR is too hard, it's too competitive. Everyone wants to do it. You have to have a resilience, and, you know, maybe, although it hurts, let yourself sort of lick your wounds, be down about it, yourself process it, so you're not harboring any of that anger or resentment, but try to look at it as a sign that something else must be waiting for you, and you're not sure what it is yet. So that openness and curiosity.
Go ahead, John.
I would also say, don't take silence as rejection, right? We all get bombarded with emails, and I miss some. I just do, and it's through no fault. I prioritize. I use my email as a to-do list, and something like, hey, I'd like to meet for coffee, can be pushed way down when I've got other things going. But if I get a second email from someone, I know they really mean it. They really do want to get together. Now it's more important to me. So, you know, that may not be great dating advice, but it's great professional advice that don't take silence as a rejection. It's just understand that, you know, busy people have busy things, and you just want to be a little higher on their to-do list, that's all.
I can't wait for the students to text somebody 2 weeks. John said that you ghosting me still means you're interested.
But professional ghosting is a thing. So it is a thing. So, you know, but maybe one follow-up, and then, you know, but then you're kind of getting hit twice, you know?
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
Keith,
Tread lightly.
Yeah.
Keith, rejection. You've had a little bit of that in your life, so, and, you know, I'm sure you could give us 1 or 2 examples.
Yeah, I know that most of us in this room were cheered on right until about the time that we reached 10, 11 months old, when we started walking and our parents were excited for us. And then from there, we started having to earn the adulation, the love, and the appreciation that we deserved. So I would say that I failed in sales for a decade, trying to do it the way everyone else told me to do it. I was told I shouldn't be in sales. And then in March of 2017, I left my job and I started a business, and I did it my way. And I was able to double my income in 2 years, doing it the way that I felt was authentic to me. So I would say, go be who you're supposed to be. And if there's people who don't appreciate that, be okay with it.
It's awesome. Other questions? Thanks, Lisa, for that question. Other questions from students or faculty? Yes.
Okay, so this probably like relates to a lot of what you guys have already talked about, but if you were at a conference like the Murrow Symposium with the brains that you have now from your careers, how would you approach today, tomorrow, after coming to this session, talking to people like you?
Okay.
Go down the line.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John. It's a great question.
I've been to so many conferences. I can't even begin to tell you how many conferences I've been to. And the mistake I have made is that I don't internalize what I learn in the moment. I'll tell myself that's really important, and I need to follow up with that, and I need to do more. But I've found notes that I took from previous conferences, and I'll think, oh, that's a great idea. Why did I not follow up with that, right? So don't just sit in a class and go, oh, I got something good out of that. Find a way to write that down and make it, internalize it over the next week, right? The things that you learn at this conference, think to yourself, I learned something good in that panel discussion or that lecture that I want to start implementing in some way. And then it just becomes who you are, right? I have catchphrases I learned in conferences because I thought it was funny. I like to be funny. And I'll steal it and use it as my own because that's my way of internalizing what I learned. So that would be my advice.
Molly?
Yeah, we've heard this a lot in the last couple of days, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can do with this demographic, and that is build a very professional LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's a quality headshot, not a selfie. Make sure that to the best of your ability with your PR and journalism minds that you're stretching your experience. Oh, you did a research paper on the link between screen time and drug use. You've written an academic paper, like put that on LinkedIn. You know, you worked in childcare, you have experience, you know, working with youth this age to this age. You know, attending a conference is something that you could put on a page. So the first and most important thing to do would be to get that up and running to the level that reflects your professionalism that is totally separate from your socials. Consider LinkedIn an island. Your socials are your socials. What you do on TikTok, X, and everything in between, and Snap, have nothing to do with that. LinkedIn is the person who you want someone to hire, and they are not the same person. So clean up your LinkedIn, get it as clean as you can. Go to the QR codes, download every single presenter's LinkedIn, friend request them. And if you have more time, I would say something that makes yourself stand out, like a business card. Probably cost you, I don't know what that would cost, the cost of paper printing in Pullman, but you know, do it online, it's probably cheap. You probably get it somewhere. You might know someone, you might have a connection. But that would be a great follow-up too, that you know, you would definitely stand out as a student at the Murrow College walking up to a professional and handing them a business card. Or at the very least, clean up the LinkedIn, make those connections, and then follow up. Hey, I saw your presentation on blah, blah, blah. I was really inspired. I'm curious to see what your company is offering. I'd love to get into the business. Can we meet for coffee? Can we schedule a Zoom?
I love that you mentioned LinkedIn because I haven't heard it enough today. And shout out to Rebecca Cooney. Raise your hand, please, Rebecca. She's amazing. Rebecca will post jobs like weekly that are really, really great jobs for Murrow students. And if you're not on there, guess what? You didn't see her post that job. So you better get on there. And that's also another advantage of what you inherit from going to the Murrow College as an undergrad or grad student is you inherit this really robust, amazing network on LinkedIn. Go ahead, Sarah.
I'll just follow up to that. So you all have access to a professional career advisor. It's Wendy Wegner. She will help you with your LinkedIn. You just have to make an appointment with her. She'll do it with you. And then there's also the Murrow Career Prep on LinkedIn where you can see all the jobs and internships that she posts. We also share a lot of what Rebecca Cooney posts as well, so we help each other with that. So you have tons of support when it comes to this part of it.
Connect with Rebecca Cooney. All right. Other questions? Other questions? Let's take advantage of today, right now, and ask these brilliant panelists some questions. Okay, I have a couple more that I can throw out there, but if you think of something, raise your hand. Next question would be, so this is kind of to any of you. Keith, you can take it first, but what of value can I offer you, and what does that mean? So we talked about this on one of our pre-calls. It was sort of when the networking process begins at a social event or other, how do you describe what a value you can offer someone without trying to sell them that you're, want them to hire you or buy your product?
I think it comes back to what John talked about, which is listening. So many of us are so busy in our head trying to shoot our shot that we don't know anything about the person. So I would say that there's a tremendous value in listening. And I think part of the reason why we may not be able to understand the value of that is because our self-image isn't where it needs to be, and we don't think that someone would want to be in a relationship with us because we've been beat up by life so much, right? That we have this imposter syndrome. That's because we just don't recognize our own value. If we recognize our own value, listen to people, build relationships, then that is real value in and of itself. And the more we do that, the more we connect with people, the more we can extend relationships to other people. That is value. Our presence is the value, not the presence in terms of gifts, right? It's the relationship. The relationship is the value. So that, you don't have to be a millionaire, you don't have to be a billionaire, you don't need to earn anything, you already have earned it. Just show up, connect with people, and extend relationships and presence.
Yeah, the value that Keith and I talk about a lot is just anywhere you are in line at a coffee shop or at a wedding reception or at Symposium sitting next to somebody, that's it. Just being open to adding somebody to your contact list anywhere, anytime, and being an asset to their life in any way you can, right? Other questions? Yes. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You talk about forming relationships through networking. What about maintaining?
I think it depends on what your intention is. If you are creating a network to get a job, and then you get the job, you no longer necessarily need to maintain an open line of communication with whomever it was that you were reaching out as an inquiry. But we could probably all attest that our lives seem to, our paths will cross and uncross and then sort of recross. And so as long as you've maintained a professional dialogue and you're not ghosting people, and say you are trying to get informational interviews or coffees or trying to apply to jobs and you get a job, the best way to maintain that professional network is to be really proactive with the people who you were also applying to. Let them know, hey, I just want to be forward, let you know I've actually taken a position with this company. They will remember you. They'll remember that you took the step to reach out to maintain a positive rapport. I have experience working in PR, and a lot of that came from relationships, and I have experience working in higher ed for the last 20 years, and I was at an event for a fundraiser, and I ran into a high school friend that I didn't even really know in high school who was running a nonprofit, and I would say that our networking had been non-existent for several decades. We got to talking. You guys heard about this too. We got to talking, and I became a brand ambassador for her nonprofit because she was like, oh, you do PR and this is what we're looking for. And I'm like, yeah, I love the volunteerism sphere. So as long as you're not on bad terms with someone in your network, which there's a lot of very easy ways to prevent that, I don't know that you need to actively pursue it unless it meets both of your needs.
Anything else to add from John or Keith?
I think, yeah, I mean, there's different levels of maintenance that, when I ran the first time for district attorney, I used a campaign manager who helped me navigate some kind of gnarly issues. And about 2 years into my job, I sent him a text saying, I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you were on my team and that I love this job. That's all I said. And he didn't reply. And I didn't take silence as rejection. I just thought, he's busy. And I bumped into him about 2 months ago at another event. And the first thing he asked is, do you still love the job? Right? So he got the text, he read it, he knew. But I've maintained that relationship. I made him feel as important to my success as he really was. And all it took was a text. So whatever it takes, just try not to ghost.
The students, they don't understand that they can keep in touch with text. Back in my day, you had to pick up this thing called a landline and call people. You couldn't just text them and say, I'm still here, I care about you. You have it easy. What's that? Yeah, you have it easy. But I just need to give props to our panelists. I mean, maintaining relationships, being present, they all do well monetarily. They're all highly successful. They're all here. Whenever I text them, they text me back. Whenever I email them, they email me back. Whenever I call them, they answer. That's brilliant. That's amazing. Like those three right there are three people that are at the highest level professional I can think of, and they came to Pullman for no compensation to be here for this. Yeah, you're not getting paid.
I thought we were getting paid.
Well, I did buy you coffee this morning, so.
Yeah,
There you go. But I just think that that's kind of where it's the small things, and it's the details are so important, and they sort of embody that. These three do that really well.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please do.
I think that we have to know what game we're playing, right? Like, are you in it? Are you here to build relationships because you're trying to get something, or are you here to build relationships because you want to give? And I also believe that we have to be really intentional about what it is that we're trying to create for ourselves, right? If it's just about the career, then we can't complain when no one shows up when we're having a bad day, right? Because we don't show up, right? So if we want to receive those things, you reap what you sow. And if you're going to have authentic relationships, then you need to sow authenticity into relationships, right? And so write down a list of your top 30 relationships. They may not have anything to do with business. They may not have anything to do with personal. They may have a lot to do with business. They may just be your person that you like to go fishing with. Write those relationships down and then be intentional. I have a checklist that I have to go through every day to have a good day, and that can be a lot of work sometimes, but I have to touch base with 5 people in my network that are important to me, or it's not a good day. Text message, email, social media, slide into your friends' DMs, do that. So be intentional about it, because if you're not intentional, it's not going to happen, and then you're going to hit a low somewhere personally or professionally, and it's too late then. You can't get an ask in. No one's going to open that door for you because you haven't been in touch, because you've just been thinking about your own life. If you want to maintain relationships, be intentional. And then one more thing, work on your character. We all know people who have fractured relationships because someone refuses to say sorry. Someone refuses to recognize where they were wrong, right? And this is important in relationships like marriage, but also in your friendships, and also in just people that are in your class.
That's awesome. And I just, before we wrap up, I want to say, find and connect. We brought up LinkedIn, all three of them. Keith Sconiers, you can Google Molly Lampros and John Wentworth, and they're a great person to connect with, in general. Like, whether you're going to be a lawyer or an entrepreneur or a college professor, or, and you're in business, they're still great connections. And so I can't emphasize enough they are the type of people that will connect and follow up with you. And if you have a question for them, you can learn a lot just in a few minutes of an interpersonal exchange with any of these three people. So please give them a hand. Thanks for being here the first time. And thanks for being here.